Okay, I want to talk about Article 1 of the Constitution in the fundamental principles. Okay, it starts like this. Italy is a democratic republic founded on work. That's the first sentence, it doesn't finish there. So, Italy is a democratic republic. What does that mean? That means there's no royal family, so there's no privilege. A republic means you don't have king and queen, you don't have special treatment because people are born into this status. No, we're all on the same level. Democratic means that we can all take part, we can all participate in the discussion of where should we go? Where should Italy go? Should it go more towards freedom or more towards equality or for the environment or for TAV, no TAV, etc. So we're all protagonists in this system. We're all included in this discussion about how we want Italy to develop. So democratic is that. Founded on work. What do we mean by that? So there was a big discussion during this period when they wrote this. They discussed what should be valued, work or property. The communists, or the more left of the spectrum, preferred work to be valued because work was integrating. It built a stronger community. It meant we had to collaborate, everyone together. When you work, you have a common project together. So when you value work, it means we all have a common project together, and we have, big emotions when, there's a success, we all feel happy, or if there's not, we all get angry, and those emotions bind us together. We have to be very direct. We can't say, that's great when it's not great. We say, no, you have to improve that. We see this in school. We see when we work together in school, we see that, after many years of working together and all the emotions, the barriers come down. We feel more like a family at the end of 5 years. It's like that with work. Work is very integrating. On the other hand, the states which value more property, like America, talks a lot about property in their constitution rather than work, doesn't mention work. It means if you value property can be a way of leaving the community. You can build a great big empire and riches and then have a big castle and close the door to the poor. You don't have to live in their reality. We see in these societies that they value freedom more, the freedom to reach your potential but leave behind the others. You can see this in England, for example. You see roads and areas, roads which are closed with big gates, and the poor stay outside, and the rich live in a very different world than the poor. The rich go to different schools and different hospitals, and your reality is complete. So it's not very communal, but you've got more freedom to reach your potential because you're less tied to the others. So Italy wanted to value work because it wanted integration. It wanted the people to feel very connected and a strong community. In fact, if we look at this first line, we can see from a distance the silhouette of Italy and the main characteristics are community, a republic, so everyone on the same level, no one's got privilege, democratic, everyone participating, included, taking part in taking responsibility on how Italy should be managed and what direction it should go, etc. Founded on work, very integrated, all the people very integrated. So that's what the founding fathers were looking for in this first line, community. I think we can see that also in the reality of what Italy is. They're not independent like English people are very independent, not so communal. Here the community is much stronger, a sense of community and integration. So the second part says the sovereignty belongs to the people who exercise it in the shape and within the limits of the Constitution. So the sovereignty means the power to change the reality, the power to make big decisions for, maybe create a completely different reality. And that belongs to the people. In England we have more a parliamentary sovereignty. So we don't have a popular sovereignty. It's called a popular sovereignty. In England we feel the authority is much stronger. We tend to accept a strong authority and, to allow big changes if they were, a strong leadership. If they want to make big changes, we accept that much more. Here, you've got a popular sovereignty. The people are much more difficult to lead. You have more mobilisation, more protest, maybe a lot more protections for the people. You've got a abrogative referendum if you don't like what they do, etc. Much more, much stronger people to lead for a politician. So I think the moment of the people's sovereignty is when they vote, when they choose. We give our sovereignty, we lend our sovereignty to our representatives to make the decisions, because they're supposed to be more able to do it, understand what's going on and represent our interests. But there are other moments, like the abrogative referendum, where we don't like what they do, so we cancel the law, or maybe we've got a lot more protections, or we can protest and mobilise and go on strike, etc. And that, I think, you've got a very strong sense, compared to England, that the people are more powerful in many ways. Which, it says, which exerts this, exercises this sovereignty within the shape and the limits of the Constitution. So the Constitution here was saying, you've got the sovereignty, the people have got the sovereignty, but you must accept these limits. The Constitution has limits. It's like a big cage to stop us going to extremes. So outside the cage are the extremes, where you get abuse and human rights violations, etc. So the Constitution says, yes, you've got it, but you can't do that. Even though it's tempting sometimes, maybe there's been a terrorist attack, the Muslim terrorist has put bombs on trains or whatever, and we feel strong emotion, we want to put all the Muslims in prisons to keep ourselves more safe, to keep feeling more safe. So but we can't do it because the Constitution says you can't. They have to have done something wrong and prove that in a court of law, etc. So it does stop us just reacting strongly in an extreme way, because the Constitution is about being moderate and responsible and using power well within the acceptable limits of the Italian culture. So that's why in England this isn't the case. If the Parliament wants, it can change the Constitution like that. Just an ordinary law is the Constitution in England, so the Parliament can actually change the limits to how it wants. There is a sense that the Parliament has no limits if it wants. It can change everything. But in Italy, the Constitution is more difficult to change. To change the Constitution needs a special process that's not just a majority. It's higher than a majority, and if you can't reach that, a referendum, etc. So it's more difficult to change, and for that reason, the the Constitution is more controlling, and here we see it controls the sovereignty, the limits of the sovereignty of the people.